Hey all, Zach Lokes. So let's talk some food. You know, when I think about food, I often think about wild foods. And I also think about foods that come from a garden. Of course, there's food in the grocery store, but anything in a grocery store actually can come back to a source that's either a garden or a wild food. Now, I know we might think about farm. Is that what came to your mind? Exactly. Farms are also part of the food production system, but we're either growing it or it's wild. And I like to use the term garden because at the essence of our food systems, humans were either hunters and gatherers, or, and I'll even say or, they were gardeners. And that's the origin. So farming is really just macro gardening, and we can put out terms like monoculture or polyculture in terms of whether or not there's many different varieties of food plants that are being grown within the same field or just a single variety. So at the root of it, I want us to think wild or gardened food. And if we're thinking about wild or garden food, we need to understand also that these are both ecosystems. What comes to mind when I say a garden ecosystem to you? And when I say a farm ecosystem? When I say an urban ecosystem or a rural ecosystem? A wild ecosystem? There are many different types of ecosystems out there, and ultimately the term ecosystem should be applied to anywhere, anyone, anything, because at its fundamental definition, it's just the interaction of living organisms with each other and their environment. Interaction of any organisms with each other and their environment. So a garden is an ecosystem, and a cornfield is an ecosystem because there's corn in a cornfield, and there's bugs in a cornfield, and there's people in a cornfield, and there's soil life in a cornfield, and the same in a garden, and the same in an urban park. So part of the conversation around food has a potential to shift to thinking about it in terms of ecosystems, because whether we are gardening or whether we are taking wild foods, they are both ecosystems. And if we understand ecosystem design, then we can properly discover solutions for the future of food that actually work within the constraints of our understanding of ecosystems, which is evolving, So I wanted us all to think about this term ecosystem, and this will inform a lot of the conversations in this Talking Food series. So an ecosystem is any living organisms and their environment interacting. Examples of a garden ecosystem could be carrots and beets and garlic and the farmers and the soil. A orchard ecosystem could have pears and plums and raspberries and bee balm. A larger farm ecosystem with acres and acres of production could include, the example before, which is various crops like corn, soy in rotation, and their soil life and people interacting and other wild organisms that pass through. But as we begin to appreciate the term of ecosystem, we can apply the principles of ecosystem design to make sure that we're developing healthy ecosystems that are regenerative. And so that'll be our next topic. So I hope that was some good food for thought.